Welcome to the Fearlessly Authentic Sash and Soul podcast, the show that goes beyond the stage, prioritizing a healthy mindset, overall well-being, and triumphs in the pageant journey. In each episode, we dive into the transformative power of embracing authenticity fearlessly.
From mindset mastery and self-care strategies to success stories that inspire, this podcast is your go-to guide for navigating the pageant world with confidence and resilience. Join us as we embark on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and celebrate the stories of those who fearlessly embraced their authenticity on the path to pageant success. I'm Lila Sherry.
And I'm Rayanna Johnson. Welcome to Sash and Soul. Hello, lovely listeners. Welcome to episode 12 of Sash and Soul. We have been going through some stuff in the pageant world the last few weeks. Oh my gosh, with the big name systems, Miss America, Miss USA coming under heat. And that's what this episode is going to be about. And spoiler, there's a part 2 because we got a lot to say, don't we, Lila?
We do. I think it's important to acknowledge that this is out of love for the women that might be struggling. I am fully aware that I am a journalist and that can come with many misconceptions, and I am not here to be e-news. I don't want to be the chatter where it's not going to be helpful. So we wanted to start with our intention. So I guess I'm kind of just jumping there. My intention is not to be...
So spill the tea, to talk about the drama?
Right. I'm not trying to focus on the drama. I don't want to talk about the tea to the point where, look, there's so many videos on it. We can go on TikTok. It is what it is. That's not where I'm at. But I've seen how much I've struggled with watching the pageant world go through this as a current title holder. And I can only imagine what people might be feeling competing, parents watching. I mean, all of the above. This is for the ones that might be struggling. So I want to preface all of this, eventually a rant, probably with the fact that this is not meant to be drama.
We're not trying to create drama. My intention always, if you know me at all, if you've been through my program, you know that one of my big focus areas is being solution focused. And so it may sound like a lot of venting and a lot of ranting in some ways, but my intention is not for this to be just to spew my frustration, but for us to also talk about, in all the things that we say that we see as problems, what are the potential solutions? What needs to be done? What has been frustrating me is the social media post. And there was one that I sent to Lila the other day that I just, like, my head was spinning. I was totally reeling because she was just talking about how nothing's going to change. And she went on about other things as well, but I don't disagree. I mean, we've lost Chesley Chris to suicide, former Miss USA. And we have had other local title holders that have been very open about suicide ideation, state title holders, national title holders. Like this is running rampant, but I think there are some misconceptions that I want to talk about as to why women are struggling in the pageant industry, specifically with mental health. But I don't want this to be about just that. I do want this to be solution focused. So that is my intention for today, is to be solution focused. And if you're in the pageant industry and live under a rock, or if you're a listener that has no idea what's happening and what we're even talking about, let's just fill you in really quickly. Lila, can you just, as a reporter, give us the rundown of what has been happening in the pageant industry for those that may not know?
I think the biggest thing right now that we've all seen on social media is that Miss USA resigned. I believe it was Monday or Tuesday this week, somewhere around there. And then shortly thereafter, the Miss Teen USA had also resigned. They cited mental health. However, there are NDAs that are very much in the works. And I need to mention that their social media manager had also resigned and had made a statement standing with both of the girls that had resigned. That's the biggest news. There's also a few things happening with Miss America that you can Google if you would like. Things going back and forth with previous organization members and now current leadership. I don't want to get into the weeds of that, but there has just been a lot. You can look up videos too about all of this, but in a nutshell, that's what we're speaking about.
Yep. It's leading to a lot of uncertainty, a lot of confusion, and questioning, whether or not if you're a current title holder or you're a contestant or thinking about competing, whether or not you even want to dive into this industry. So I don't think this is a new thing that's happened. I think that we've had this big upsets in the past where girls have questioned whether or not they even want to continue competing. And so I think this conversation right now will hopefully shed some light on what it actually looks like from the inside. I personally had a lot of mental health struggles. If you've been listening to Sash and Soul, you know that I struggled quite a bit when I was Miss Wisconsin, both times in 2011, 2012, and in my year as Miss Wisconsin 2014. And I have been working with women in this industry for long enough now that I see the ups and downs of struggles as contestants and as title holders. But the thing that has bothered me the most is that I came into coaching. I launched my program, Fearlessly Authentic, in direct response to wanting to help women not only develop incredible professional skills in communication and business development, business acumen, but also their mindset skills so that they can be the healthiest and strongest title holders possible in representation of their communities, their state, and their country. What I didn't expect was that I'd be doing all this work and seeing so much progress in my clients just for it to be shot down and completely, honestly destroyed because of their experiences as a title holder and within the organization that they are representing. That is what we want to talk about today, because I think there's a misconception that title holders and contestants struggle because they're putting themselves out there, they're being judged, they're being ridiculed, they're putting so much pressure on themselves as if it's coming internally. We talked about this on a coaching call this week where one of my clients said, you hear it is what you make it, which is putting the onus back on the title holder. And I think that there is some truth to that, but we have to break it down and recognize that there are so many different factors at play here that you could be the strongest, healthiest, most vibrant, never struggled with depression or anxiety or any kind of mental health upset in the past, become a title holder, and then through spinning your wheels and the burnout and the lack of communication and the mistreatment and control that can happen from the organization to the title holder, that's actually what is causing some breakdowns in mental health for women in this industry. And that's what we're talking about today. And we're going to talk about how can we move forward and how can we create change that will actually help women in this industry, the pageant industry, that states that they're here to empower women. And actually, what we're seeing more of and commonly is that it's disempowering women in many ways.
Two things. It is a perfect storm right now. This too shall pass. I know that, right? That's kind of what a lot of people have touched on with all of this. But then that leads me into it is a vicious cycle. And I've seen this cycle too many times. I've been here over 10 years. I've been a title holder, state title holder in multiple different organizations. It's a vicious cycle. And so I want to acknowledge that again before we get into all of this, because it is going to take that breaking the cycle. That is going to be difficult, but it all comes down to that. So I wanted to mention both of those things before we get started.
I also want to point out that no matter what side you're on right now, if you're a volunteer or you have some ownership in a pageant system, if you're a director, or if you're a title holder, contestant, a parent, a friend, whatever level you're on, a sponsor, the list goes on, right? There's a lot of different aspects to the pageant industry. I really want you to I want to encourage you to look inward and be very self-reflective during this episode. I do this constantly as a coach. I did it constantly as a title holder. I know Lila does this as well, as we're looking at ourselves and questioning, am I doing harm or am I doing good? Am I part of the problem? Am I part of the solution? And truly look at yourself. Please do not think that you are immune. Please do not think that you are immune. I think it's really important for every single one of us to be reflective and see, like, we could be part of the problem here. And are we actually driving this forward in a good way or in a negative way? So with that, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. And this is not to point fingers. Everybody can be doing this. I struggle with the idea that I have tried to have conversations, to make changes, and I am met with, well, you should be grateful. Yes, I am so grateful that I have this opportunity, but this is all for the good of the programs and ultimately the businesses that we're all trying to run. Like this will benefit all. The positive changes that we want to talk about is not to point fingers, is not to offend anybody, is not to kick anybody out on the street. It is to benefit everybody so that we all feel good about this at the end of the day because it goes both ways. It's a two-way street. So now, now let's get into it.
All right, let's dive in. I got on the call this morning and I told Lila I wrote a book at 4 a.m. yesterday because I couldn't sleep. She's like, "You wrote a book?" I said, "Yep." Pulled up my notes app because my brain would not stop spinning and I just spewed into my notes app. I read it to her before we even started, like speed read through this. And so we broke it down into two parts. We've got part one of my message to the pageant industry and part two. And I know that Lila, these are not things that Lila and I haven't talked about. So a lot of these thoughts were also coming from her. So this is going to be a really great conversation, I think, for both of us. So I'm just going to get started with my notes. And it's the first thing is in part something I've already mentioned, which is stop disempowering the women you claim to empower. What does that mean to you, Lila?
Here's the thing. When I think of women's empowerment, I think autonomy, I think support, I think celebrating. And boy, does that not often happen.
And I
Uh,
want to say too, teaching, educating.
yes. It- I- how how would a parent treat a child that they love very dearly, right? Like they will hold them accountable, but at the same time, you're giving them tools, you're giving them resources, you're giving them grace, you're giving them opportunities, you're communicating with them. I think this is such a empowerment is such a broad term and such a it could be have such a broad definition, but I think when it comes down to it, if I want to do an appearance, help me do that appearance. If I want to wear my hair a certain way, celebrate that. If I want to wear a certain color or if I like a certain style of clothes, support me in that. If I have a close friend or a close mentor or a close volunteer or a close coach that I work with that supports me and that makes me feel good and helps me be the best version of myself, my God, celebrate that. And that is what we talk about when it comes to what is helping this woman be the best version of herself. And maybe that's something that we have to define is the clothes that you're wearing, what you want to wear. Let me say that. It's not about what you're being judged on, but what you want to wear, the hair that you want to wear, what appearances you want to do, your service initiative and what you're passionate about, your family and your family structure, although it may be different. I have an immigrant family. I come from a household where I have cut off relations with one of my parent for many different reasons. That is not necessarily the norm. But can we celebrate the fact that I'm a better version of myself today because of that? Anything that makes a woman better should be celebrated, whether or not you've seen it before, whether or not you would wear your hair the same way, whether or not you are best friends with the person that they're working with. Empower them because it's helping them be better.
100%. And I wrote down the word parenting as you were speaking, because all of this is within reason. You're not going to let your child necessarily walk out of the house with, skimpy clothing on when they're 10 years old, because that isn't necessarily to their benefit. So with guidance, encouraging and empowering them to wear what makes them feel good, but is also a healthy, solid representation of themselves and not tearing them down in the process.
Why don't we sit back and observe whether or not the things that this woman is doing is working for them first before we begin to attack anything? There are meetings that happen in every system after you are crowned, very often the day after, and it's a whirlwind. This woman is sitting in this chair. She has no idea what just happened 12 hours ago. I'm speaking from personal experience. They have a media interview less than 12 hours after they're crowned. Chances are they might not have predicted that they would be in this spot, and maybe they haven't really practiced any of this, right? Like you really are just thrown into it. Let's not bombard her with questions about her family, with questions about who she's working with, with questions about the clothes and the people that she decides to surround herself with.
Questions, Lila, literally setting boundaries and telling her no before you even understand the ins and outs of it.
Thank you. Actually, yes, thank you. Me forgetting parts of that. Let's sit back, let's say for a few weeks. Let's give her a month to show what she brings to the table. That's her paperwork. That's the plans that she has, the people that she's working with, everything that, and that's not to negate that there are not sponsors and people in the organization that you need to work with. Absolutely. But there is a place for everybody. No, there, abundance, y'all. There is a place for everyone. So let's decide after we watch for a little bit what is working, what is not. Okay, fine. If we feel like a coach that she's working with is really damaging and is not doing what they need to be doing, let's reassess that. Fine. If we think that a stylist that she's working with isn't really putting her in the best clothes that we don't really love, let's reassess that. But let's give people a chance to be able to offer what we know that they can offer. And then let's talk about it. Let's not bombard 12 hours after this person's crown is placed on their head.
Right. A couple of things. Number one, if a title holder out there is listening, my message to you is do not be an entitled brat. Work with the organization because number two, to the organizations out there as a business owner, I understand you have a brand, you have expectations, you have policies and procedures, you have relationships built, and that title holder is expected as a new employee of the organization to abide by that. But don't be a jerk about it. Can we find a way to collaborate and work together? The other thing I wanted to say as I was listening to Lila is I heard this analogy once and I loved it. For you out there that are spiritual or Christian or whatever faith you have, whatever God you believe in, God does not care whether or not you are. No, let me back up. As a parent, when you're looking out the window, you don't care if your children are playing house or hide and seek or capture the flag. You don't care what they're doing as long as they are safe and they are happy. God does not care what you are doing here on this earth as long as you are safe and you are happy and you are doing your best to be the best person that you can be. So I think as directors of an organization, as volunteers within an organization, does it matter what your girl is doing as long as she is safe, as long as she is healthy, as long as she is happy, as long as she is representing the organization in the best way that she knows how and representing herself in the best way that she knows how? Can we approach it from that standpoint? And that to me is empowering. That to me is allowing her to have the autonomy to do what she dreams of doing and for you to be the most supportive, impactful person that you can be in her life.
One more note before I think we can move on from this is I want to make clear that I've always been excited to work with sponsors. I was so excited to work with people and people that I've heard about, good things I've heard through the organization. And when I became Miss Wisconsin, a big, exciting part was that I was able to work with some of these people. Why there couldn't have been space for everybody was mind-boggling to me, baffling, to be quite honest. Why there is not space for everybody to be involved in a woman's life in any capacity that they see beneficial, that's baffling to me. So again, it's almost like the table is big enough. We can all be here in the same space. Can we talk? Can we all talk with each other? Can we all chat? Can we all have a conversation about what our goals are and where we see ourselves? And I just don't believe that either end, right? Directors, organization, or girl and her team need to clash in a way unless it's not benefiting the girl.
Absolutely. Woo.
Okay. What's
All right.
what's next?
What's next? This is talking about coaching. And this is, I mean, I'm going to acknowledge I am a coach, but I want to let you know what my intention is behind this. I have had messages from multiple clients in the past few years that had been working with me, but that are no longer allowed to work with me, not because they have a sponsored coach now through the title organization that they represent, but because their directors just don't want them to work with a coach because they have ideas about the coaching industry of some kind, or maybe have some personal thing against me. I have no idea, actually. But then they reach out to me later and talk to me about how they wish they could still work with me because they're just not getting the support that they want and they're missing the mindset work and they're just missing that like consistent work that they had with me. I also want to say that I love volunteers. I grew up with volunteers. Volunteers raised me in the pageant world, and I love them with my whole heart. And I always tell my clients like, they are human beings. They have a life, they have families. You need to not be an entitled brat and think about what they've got going on as well. And you can be resourceful and find other means to support you. But when the directors are telling you, when you're being resourceful, no, you can't use those resources, that's problematic. So here's my note from the other day, yesterday morning. You invest in your hair, your makeup, your clothes, your healthcare, therapy, education, transportation, housing, insurance, retirement, vacation, massages, facials, eating out, happy hour, etc. But you deny these women when they want to invest in themselves through coaching. If coaches are an unfair advantage against people who can't afford it, then you should also ban couture dresses, walking coaches, stylists, makeup and hair artists, photographers traveling to Chicago, New York, or LA for talent choreography, and vocal coaches and instrument coaches. Instead, you are denying women the choice to invest in their personal and professional development that will support them for their entire lives. Please drop your ego at the door or don't enter the building. Clearly, I was mad because literally in the past couple of weeks, I have had parents and clients reach out to me telling me they wish they could work with me because they're not getting the support that their directors told them they would get. And it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart. It makes me spin my wheels thinking, why am I even doing this? I'm trying to support these women, but then they can't even get the support they want.
One of the most damaging things that I have experienced, not just in the pageant world, but from adults in general, make your inferences, is when people take away resources, but do not replace them with anything else. That is borderline abusive. You cannot take away a woman's support system, decide who she can and cannot see, decide who she can and cannot talk to. And if she decides to make a phone call, it's like tiptoeing and walking on eggshells. But in replacement, you give nothing. That is not okay for anybody. That's hurtful, that's harmful, and that affects somebody long term, and that can affect relationships in their life long term. It sucks. And that's not okay. It's just not okay in any capacity: workplace, family life, personal life, pageant life, period.
Yep. So to piggyback off of that, my next thing that I wrote in my book, I guess we're calling it, I said, whatever happened to quote, it takes a village to raise a child. It's okay that you're not the expert on everything. I'm really tired of quote, you don't need a coach when you have us. Maybe you have all of those skills. Maybe you have all of that experience and maybe you have a great relationship with that person. And that's awesome. I love that. But a coach like myself, I'm speaking for myself. I have dedicated my life to my programming. I have built a curriculum and proven techniques to support each of my clients in their unique needs. And so many other valuable coaching programs have done that as well. So if you haven't done that for your title holders and they want more support than your limited volunteer time can provide, please don't deny them their autonomy of choosing what is best for them.
Absolutely. And you know what? If it comes down to the money thing, I cannot emphasize how important it is to look at the world around you. I don't know if we got to take some economic courses or business courses, but in order for somebody to be successful in what they do, and this applies to every job, they have to earn some sort of living so they can fulfill their baseline needs for shelter, food, water, so that they can continue doing what they do on a daily basis. I would not do the journalism that I do today if I was not able to make a living and support myself. There are people, you wait tables for a living. There are people who work as doctors and teachers. Would teachers be teachers if they could not make a living? No, they would be busy out there making a living. This is how the world works. Y'all, I can't believe I'm saying this. But doctors, as amazing and incredible, and as much as we need nurses and everybody that works in a healthcare industry, they have to feed themselves too. They are not villains for needing to feed themselves and for finding ways to feed their families and put food on the table and have shelter over their kids' heads. That is not villain behavior. And if we decide that the time that we use outside of all the rest of the basic needs that we have is to help women with communication and mindset and feel good about themselves, what part of that is villainizing? And until I hear a solid enough reason that the work that we do is harmful and the work that we do is bringing people down, then I will have that conversation. But until then, do not attack the way that anybody makes a living. I don't care what it is. And I'm talking all of it. Do not attack the way that somebody makes a living and puts food on their table and raises a family.
I did other jobs before this, before launching my own business. I burnt out. It put me in the hospital. I am healthy and I am happy and I'm holding myself accountable to my balance as a business owner and the work that I do every single day supporting. I have 25 women in my program right now. That is so fulfilling. It's incredible. But I want to talk about how coaches can be harmful for just a second. Oh, Lila, I was in tears. I haven't even told you about this yet. I was in tears the other day because I was talking to someone who had worked with a coach. And one of the interview practice questions that they had asked was, what sets you apart? And this young woman thought that she had just the most beautiful answer. And she was so proud of it. And the coach came back and said, no, that's not what sets you apart. All girls have that. What sets you apart is your plus size. I couldn't hold it back. I was crying. And that is not the first time that I've cried listening to someone tell me about what a paid coach said to them. The first time that I cried about a coach was this coach told this beautiful human being, this beautiful soul, that she would never win because no judge in their right mind would crown a girl that is so open about their suicide attempt. I sobbed. I couldn't breathe. I had been hospitalized for a suicide attempt. I floored, absolutely floored. So I'm going to just throw out there that I understand that not all coaches are great at what they do either.
Absolutely.
Which goes back to our point earlier in this conversation, which is check yourself. Check yourself. Nobody has all the right answers. I am not a perfect coach for everyone, but I trust that the women that need my programming, that will find value in it, that will grow through it, will find me. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Well, that's just like anything. That brings me back to the point of you find a different doctor if they're not working for you. You find a different coach, and I'm talking not just pageant coach, I'm saying dance teams, right? I remember there were times where well, I never reassessed my piano coach, but I mean things like that where it's like you have that ability to reassess who you're working with. And I'm not putting us on a pedestal. I have things to learn when it comes to all of this. We all are learning, we're all growing. But the fact of the matter is, give the girl the autonomy to be able to assess like what is beneficial for her or not. Because what if that paid coach that was really damaging was a sponsor? And now she's forced to work with this person, right? Like it's all the same thing. We live in a world. I don't want to get into the finances of this world, but we live in a world where we are allowed to choose different products for different reasons in the same realm of products. If y'all catch my drift, there are places in this world that do not have that ability to do that. We do. So just like anything, we can use that to our advantage, and that applies for coaching as well. I am in no means putting us on a pedestal. We will work for the women that will work with us, and it's going to be beneficial for those that seek the help that we provide. But yeah, it's not one size fit all. And I'm not saying that there aren't some other really amazing coaches out there. There probably are, right? Like, and I know there are, but give the woman the ability to assess it herself. My God.
One of the things that I'm most proud about myself for, we talk about inner qualities and, having humble confidence and believing in yourself. But one of the things that I'm most proud of myself for is that I am very upfront with every single person that I work with, that if I'm not working for you, please leave, go find a different coach, Or if you just want to explore other coaching programs, maybe you don't have a problem with my coaching program. Maybe you think it's great, but you just want to see what else is out there. Maybe there's another program that offers a full package of like X, Y, and Z for pageant coaching, and I only offer communication and mindset. And I really don't do a whole lot of walking and wardrobe and on stage presentation as much as I do these other things because that's my passion area. I've always said, if you want to go find a different coach, like, please, I will not hold it against you. I will welcome you back with open arms if you'd like to. And many of my clients have chosen that. I've had a few that have come back, and there are many that still work with other coaches, and I still feel I have a great relationship with. So I just think I'm living out that value, and I want more people to see the value in like abundance. We've been talking about this, like have the abundance mindset. I'm not afraid of losing my business because clients go elsewhere. There's plenty of women in this world that would find value in my program. And so I'm sitting here fine. I'm fine. But back to, it's not just coaches that can be harmful. And Lila hit the nail on the head when she was talking about sponsors can actually be harmful. We had that experience this year together, didn't we, Lila? Where there was a particular sponsor that was bashing both of us.
It was bad. Um, it, and I don't want to point fingers, and I'm all for character growth, and I don't know what this person is going through. But the words that I had heard sent me spiraling. Oh, I don't even want to get into it because I feel like I'm going to start crying, but it there were a few weeks after I had heard some things where didn't want to get out of bed, didn't want to go to work. It was to the point where, to put it in perspective, I had, a couple days that I go into the news station, and those are normally my days of like, this is all you have to focus on. Just, it's kind of blissful in a way, aside from the work stress. But I would get up and I would immediately be in tears, like before I could even get out of bed. And I would be in tears on my lunch break. And I would be in tears for hours after work. And I just couldn't put myself together. And going through that experience, I think was really telling. And I think put me in a space to really talk about mental health now as a title holder, which I don't feel like I've talked about as much as I maybe am now. But words matter. The way that you say things matter. And especially when on paper, quite literally, you are supposed to be, quote unquote, a supporter of both the organization and as a result, the title holder who represents the organization. And when you are quite literally on paper supposed to be this, it's really jarring and it's really harmful when you are not. And I'm not just saying like, oh, you dropped the ball on this, or maybe you forgot to do that. I'm saying blatant disrespect, and I'm going to use the word slander about me, about my people, about my family. That's not okay. And I know this probably happens in a lot of different ways. Like I can only imagine, I'm just thinking about Noelia right now and thinking about Uma Sophia and what they might have been through. And I just can only imagine the hurt that people are in right now, formers, ICU. And so I'm going to end there because now I'm going to get emotional, but it was hard. It was really tough.
And that points to what I was talking about earlier, that there are so many different factors. There's absolutely your own mental health and the work that we all need to do to maintain balance in our wellness. And for many of us, we have maybe a biological or the way trauma background that puts us more at risk for mental health struggles. And that's very real. And I understand that. I also understand that the pressure from being in the public eye is a huge proponent that can cause some additional stress, which can lead to burnout and other mental health struggles. But I think the other things that we're talking about here is the people that are supposedly supposed to be empowering and supporting and sponsoring because they love this organization. Like, you have to love all of it. You have to love the diversity of the women that are representing it. You have to be aware that you're not always going to agree, and that's okay. I mean, as title holders, as contestants, we have always been told and taught, like in interview, you can share your opinion, but you have to be open and aware that the people you're talking to may not have the same opinion. So it's always important to be respectful and open minded. Yet the volunteers and sponsors aren't doing the same.
Isn't that just life? Like, isn't that I go into any workplace, I go into a family structure, navigating Logan's family, right? Like a lot of his family has become a lot of my own. And that includes real family struggles that we're navigating through. In any capacity, respect comes first. That's all I have to say, actually.
Sometimes a lot of times it's easier said than done. Emotions run high, but that's where emotional regulation comes in. Some people, I think we can give each other grace and see that we are not always at a space. Maybe our baseline is lower. If you listen to our mental health versus mindset episode, we talked about what baseline is. Maybe your baseline is lower. So your capacity to regulate your emotions isn't as solid as it might be if your baseline was more at a normal space. And we can see that in people. We can have grace and respect for people. But when it's a consistent mistreatment, when it's a consistent issue of lack of communication or poor communication, disrespectful, dysfunctional communication, that's when it causes really significant long-term problems. We're in this role for 365 days. This isn't just about a 3-day pageant and making it the best experience for girls that it can possibly be. The title holder holds this position for 365 days. There's a whole mess of ups and downs. So
Right.
if they're consistently being mistreated, misspoken to, silenced, disrespected, controlled, that wears on a person. That is abuse. That's problematic. And that's what is also contributing to mental health struggles and really long-term issues. I've faced it. I see other clients that have faced it. I have friends that have faced it. It's something that I know we hear like, we just need to talk about it more. No, I'm tired of talking about it, you guys. I'm going to cry. I'm tired of talking about it. Can we do something about it now? Can people start taking accountability and creating some positive change? Which brings me to my next point. It's okay that you don't connect with each of your title holders. 3 to 7 judges chose them to represent your organization for a year. That's the industry, which is crazy, right, Lila? Unlike any other job in any other company, in pageants, we solicit outsiders to hire women to represent the organization. The direct supervisors or directors and volunteers, they don't even have a part in the interview process other than prepping the judges. So if you're struggling with your girl, you need to adjust your approach and do what's best for her and, of course, the organization. But if that means allowing her to build a team that doesn't directly include you as part of the prep, that's okay. We're not all going to get along. We're not all going to jive. That's just life. So set guidelines and expectations. Follow through with it. But please don't get pissed at her because she's not the person you would like her to be. In addition, it's a two-way street. All you title holders out there, all you contestants out there, it's okay that your director maybe isn't what you think a director should be. They're human. We all have to give each other grace. We got to work together. So much of what we talk about in Fearlessly Authentic and on Sash and Soul is conflict resolution and how to communicate with people when it's difficult. Because, hey, oh, that's life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Finally, because I don't know if there's anything else to say about that. Oh, if you're burnt out as a volunteer, I hear you, I see you, but please step down. There's no shame in that. I've done it.
Or just lighten your load.
Yeah,
That's okay. Like, nobody needs to be kicked out. There is a place for everybody to be beneficial in the way that they want to be, in the way that works for them. Like, why is all hands on deck such a negative thing?
right. You're going to do more harm than good when you're claiming a seat at the table and you're not doing anything to help move the mission forward. And which is where I said earlier, drop your ego at the door. Don't enter the building. Not everyone in a company or in an organization or in a group project at school is going to agree with the direction that you're going. But that's what a team is about. Think about any kind of sports team. You might not agree with the play, but as a team member, you got to follow through with it or you're going to
Right.
lose.
Right. If you're running a relay, somebody might have made a mistake in the middle of the race, or somebody didn't run as fast as you think they would have. You don't just stop the race. You got to do your part and you just hope for the best and you support your teammates in the way that you can. And you're not running the whole relay either.
Mm. I think we see that a lot. And we've heard of that a lot because volunteers, especially if they're very passionate, they take on a lot. We see a couple of things like you take on a lot because you're picking up the slack from other people, which is really unfortunate. It's very real. But then there's also that, do a lot because they just like to do everything and they don't trust anyone else.
Mm.
Both are problematic. But I think what irks me is when I hear about organizations that are like, how we just can't find good people to help. Well, I think maybe there's a structural organizational issue that may be addressed here too. Like
Yep.
let's just preach it over and over and over again. It is a two-way street.
Yep.
It's a two-way street.
Theoretically, I took a day, not even a day, I took an hour to brainstorm and semi reach out to people that may or may not be interested in helping the organization, volunteering in some way. I had a list of like 5 to 8 people in less than 45 minutes that either I think very well would do it or already agreed to help in some type of way. That's all.
Oh, we're going to get into this in part 2. So just a little bit of a
Foreshadowing.
thank you foreshadowing is yeah, we can do that. Title holders do it all the time where we find people that are interested in getting involved. And then what happens? Somebody drops the ball because we're just title holders. I mean, we can only do so much. We're
And we're
only the
only
title holder for a year.
exactly. Yep.
And so if we're handing you people that want to be involved and then for some reason they get involved and then decide to quit, what's going on?
Or if they just never get a response.
Mm, yeah. All right. Let's sum up part 1.
Okay. First of all, let's really do some personal work with everybody involved to make sure that we know how to best empower somebody. I'm so sick of using the word because I feel like we hear it over and over and over and over, but nothing changes. Can we, you know what? I'm going to replace the word empower with autonomy. That is so important. Can we give the title holder autonomy? She is not a child. She came in with a plan. She has people that have supported her up until this point. You don't get to just wipe that all away from somebody's life. This is somebody's life that you're talking about. So let's give that person autonomy. And you know what? That comes with being okay with mistakes that are made, being okay with reassessing things, reassessing the value of things, because that's the whole point is when you have autonomy, you have the ability to be able to make mistakes. You let your toddler fall when they're learning how to walk. You don't put them in stilts or like bandages so that they don't fall. They have
Or
to learn
yell at
how.
them when they fall.
Right. You have to know how to fall in order to walk. That is such a fundamental, basic skill that can be applied in every single aspect. And that counts when you place a crown on a person's head. Because you know what? Let's be honest. As much as we predict what we want to do, as much as we plan, as much as we have a feeling that this could be for us, right? Like I had such a deep feeling that one day I would get to be Miss Wisconsin. I didn't know when, but I knew that if I worked hard enough, I could achieve that goal if the timing was right. But that's not to say that it's not a whirlwind, that it's not very jarring, that things don't surprise you when it happens. Like, can we keep that into account and then give that woman the autonomy to figure it out?
There is no perfect in this because perfection doesn't exist in relationships, in organizations or companies or life. It just doesn't exist. So we we're not saying anyone needs to strive for like having perfect relationships with their title holders or being the perfect supervisor of their title holders or for title holders to be the perfect title holder and aspect of the organization that they're representing. Can we just strive for better? Can we just consistently check ourselves and ask, am I doing enough? Am I being the best that I can be? What mistake did I make? Do I need to take accountability of my actions? Can I apologize because what I said was misinterpreted? I didn't mean it that way. On both sides, as a title holder or as a director, volunteer, or sponsor. Like, we all have bad days. As much as we need to practice giving ourselves grace, we need to practice giving others grace as well. And we also need to set boundaries to protect ourselves from people that we can only give them so much grace and they're not doing the work that they could be doing to take accountability and be better.
How about this? Are you treating them the way that you would want to be treated?
Oh, kindergartner teacher Lila just came out. I love it.
That's all.
All right. Well, that wraps up part 1 of a message to the pageant industry. We will see y'all in part 2.
Bye. Hey, we want you to be a part of our growing community. Hit that subscribe button now to stay up to date with the latest insights and strategies straight from industry experts and seasoned competitors. Whether you're a seasoned competitor or just starting your journey, our podcast is your go-to resource for all things pageantry. In each episode, we explore topics like mastering the interview, perfecting your stage presence, navigating the world of pageants, and cultivating confidence. And while you're at it, leave us a review. Your feedback fuels our passion to bring you valuable content that resonates with your journey. Join our community of successful women from around the globe. Subscribe, tune in, and let's embark on this journey together.